Hey guys, it's Nick. I had something on my mind for a while now. A policy idea that I want to discuss, and this is obviously gaining traction now that it's now undeniable. Police violence and police brutality. We've seen increased awareness about this issue for a very long time, for a very long time, and it's been surreal in my lifetime to see public perception change so much, to have so many white allies, so many Hispanic allies, as many Asian allies. It's amazing to see. And when I was watching the protest last night, one thing that caught my eye and that warmed my heart as well is the camaraderie you saw among the rioters, the protesters, I should say. You had people with different races, different creeds. They was high fiving each other. They was hugging each other. I can only imagine the kind of bonds that was formed that day. I mean, we have protests scheduled in Kansas City for tomorrow that I'm very looking forward to attending. But now, because of this massive awareness and this collective consciousness of police brutality, I want to discuss abolish the police because it's legit. Because the police are they beyond the pale. The amount of corruption you see in police force with police killing unarmed black people that are clearly obeying their orders, clearly not a threat, and they refuse to get prosecuted. And if they do, they get prosecuted with a weak ass sentence. So, because of this massive corruption, I think the police force has long outlived its usefulness. And now that comes from I'm gonna go back to my political ideology, because if someone asks me what I believe in and how I will label myself, I would call myself a libertarian socialist, libertarian left. And now I've always been that way. I always naturally had this inclination towards libertarianism. But what I don't understand how libertarian leads people to go to the right, because the reason why I've always been natural libertarian because I've always been anti-authority, anti-establishment. And that led me to the left even before I knew that much about politics, because my first mindset was, I was like, hey man, the government shouldn't be able to tell someone who they can marry. If someone want to have an abortion before the fetus is based on what the scientists say is based on conscience, I think you should be able to do that as well. The government should not tell you how to live your life unless you are physically harming someone else. And that's always been my creed. And I think that's creed of a lot of libertarians. But I don't understand how you go for libertarian to supporting the Republican Party, who are blatant authoritarians. Because if you, back in the day before I got my nose deep into politics, and you can say I still had a little bit of cognitive dissonance on the politics I did know, when I was more supportive of the Democratic Party, my idea, because I was radicalized during the George Bush administration, and my idea of the Republican Party was harsh authoritarianism, right? So that almost alone kind of led me toward the Democratic Party. I don't know what leads a lot of people to the Democratic Party. Obviously, there's a lot of outward racism in the Republican Party that kind of push a lot of people I know towards just being Democrats by default. But my reason why I was Democrat, 'cause I thought there was, it sounds funny to say, but man, I thought it was more on the libertarian minded, because I saw how they was. Well, actually, I now knowing I am now, and you guys know that I don't like Democrats. It's hard for me to really rationalize why I thought that way, but I did. And one thing that woke me up was the Obama administration. The Obama administration, when I saw them constantly reauthorize the Patriot Act, when I saw NSA spying get expanded under Obama, when I just saw constant authoritarian behavior on behalf of Obama. I considered regime change war and ending the wars and spending that's a very solid libertarian belief. And like I said, I don't know, because I got Iraq War head fakes from Democrats. I wasn't paying attention enough, but during my time in the George Bush administration, where I used to call myself a Democrat, I just thought they all was anti-war. I thought they was all more libertarian minded. So I always consider myself a left libertarian, and I probably wouldn't have called myself that for a long time. It was around the time when I really started diving into politics, maybe around 2014, 2015. and I started reading Chomsky, and I saw how he explained it, and his explanation is brilliant. And I remember when I first read it, it was like a light bulb that came out of my head, because Chomsky was like um, someone who, I think he was talking about anarchy, but it's kind of the same idea, that you got to have a government program that justifies itself, right? So that's where my libertarian belief come in play. You got to have laws, you got to have government programs that justify itself. Now, for example, gay marriage and the enforcement of gay marriage does not justify itself. The prohibition of marijuana does not justify itself. In fact, it's harmful. So that's why I got the position to legalize all marijuana, and why I've been a strong advocate of gay marriage. Now, this is bringing to the policy position I'm talking about now. Abolish the police. Now, when I first heard this policy idea, I was immediately turned on by it, because obviously my lifestyle is fuck the police. I hate the police just because, obviously, earlier while I talked about how corrupt they are, and I don't think the police literally are just glorified revenue collectors. They are security guards of the rich. They don't protect and serve our community. They kill us. So, based on that, and I really wanted to be able to defend the abolish police idea. So I looked into a lot of philosophers and a lot of history, and I think a lot of people who have a reactionary take against abolish the police. My thing is, I think you just need to read history, because the police, as we know it, is a very, very recent new thing as it ran right now. The connection between the prosecutors, the police, the overall bureaucracy, the paperwork that's involved, everything that's ingrained in current police culture is pretty new. So the thought that I understand that a lot of you guys have is, what do you replace that with? Now, there are a lot of good ideas I was looking to and I was reading. I'm like, why don't we do that? For example, seeing how broken the police culture has been, and it has been for decades. I mean, it's not like it just now broke. It's been broken for decades, right? So, I think we need to disband that and have them become elective community organizers, right? You can have community patrols. Once again, elected. Why shouldn't they be elected officials? Why shouldn't they be someone constantly held to account? Because one big problem with police culture and police overall is police accountability. Because right now, what we have to rely to hold the police accountable is part of the cog of the machine. For example, I like to bring up Amy Klobuchar, because she's the most recent example, because she refused to prosecute George Floyd's death. And you see this is a constant pattern. Kamala Harris had a history not going after tough on crime, on police that was part of police violence as well. But she led off Steve Mnuchin. So you have the prosecutor, you got the police that serve the rich. They ease on the rich and let them go for their white collar crimes. They don't prosecute them for tanking our economy, but they will harshly prosecute innocent people like Klobuchar did. Like Kamala Harris, who fought to keep an innocent man in prison. These are the people they fight for, and you gotta understand, they are part of the cog in the machine, and they're the people that are designed to hold the police accountable, but they don't. So what I think should happen is, and I heard intellectuals talk about this, why not have the police force that's elected? Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know exactly how that's implemented. I would love to have some more talks about and with some intellectuals who believe in this as well. But based on what a lot of the government activities you see, and a lot of the new government agencies that they put together, like ICE, for example, that's completely worthless. I think it's definitely possible for us to have a community system in place where you have people from the community that is elected by the community that can do community patrols. Excuse me. And there are also a lot of police daily activity that you can divide and put into other government responsibility, for example, whether it be enforcing traffic laws, which I'm not a fan of. Like I said, I'm a libertarian at heart. I don't think speeding tickets should be a thing. I don't think seat buckles should be a thing, because once again, you gotta justify yourself. I don't think these rules justify themselves, right? I don't think if you have now this is a rule that makes sense. If you're driving and you don't have a seatbelt on and you're responsible for someone's death, you have to charge them for some sort of involuntary manslaughter or something. But having seatbelt as an actual rule, it doesn't justify itself. Once again, it's just part of glorified revenue collection for the state, and that's what it is. That's what speeding tickets are. Speeding tickets not people speeding not increasing accidents. It's people texting and driving. People who don't pay attention. And so I don't get off topic here, but I made this point all the time to people. Man, there's only one wreck I had in my entire life when I was 16 years old, and I still believe it was the other guy's fault. But that's the only wreck I had that was my fault. Man, I am the safest driver ever when I'm speeding, because when I'm speeding, I'm engaged. I'm dodging traffic. I'm driving a few seconds ahead, doing defensive driving maneuvers. I think once again, I don't think it's speed. I think it's just bad driving ability. But once again, I digress. I'm getting a little bit off topic here. But once again, let's go back to my libertarian philosophies I have. Now, you can have traffic law. Once again, I don't agree with that. You can have that done by another government agency. And once again, there's a lot of different paperwork. There's a lot of different red tape. Like you see police, they may be in hospitals, for example. Like there's a lot. Once again, you can reorganize these government groups and reallocate their responsibilities. Right. That's why I truly believe. Now, one thing that I do have a hang up on, and I definitely understand people may be a little bit pushed back on this, is you may ask yourself, how do you stop violent crime? Well, once again, I say you can have community patrols, but the community patrols, I admit, may not help stop the crimes. But my response is, police don't stop crimes either. Police come and they fill the reports afterwards. So whenever there's a domestic violence incident, let's say some guys beat the fuck out of his wife or something, the police didn't show up to stop it from happening. The police came afterwards to fill out the police report. Now, I want complete reform of the police system and law enforcement. So, under my reforms, with well-done legislation, you will have another group that's in charge of doing that police report. Maybe people who are uniquely trained to do that kind of stuff instead of just some cop who was promoted. There's a lot of ideas, and I didn't really understand a lot of the ideas before. But it has to be done because the system is so corrupt and so broken. The idea of a good cop is a complete myth. Good cops, they either get demoted, fired, or they quit in frustration. If you have someone who's been on the police force for a long time, they definitely look the other way. And you have whistleblowers who used to be cops who will literally say this. I really wish I remember his name, but it was a really, really long time ago. Back when I actually used to watch the Joe Rogan podcast. He had a policeman who used to be involved with the police department. He just constantly tells stories about how it was a us versus them mentality. So, and it wasn't just him. I hear these accounts all the time. So, when you hear about this us versus them mentality, how do you think you can reform that? You can't really do real reforms. You gotta get rid of the police academy. You gotta get rid of all the police training. You gotta get rid of everyone in leadership. You gotta completely revamp how we do law enforcement in this country. And that's a straw man a lot of people say. A lot of people, when they hear you say abolish police, they think you say abolish law enforcement. Now, there are people further to my left who I think are wrong who do go that far, but I don't go that far. I think it's just all about reform of the police system. And one great idea I've been hearing about is just community organizing. And the argument towards abolishing the police is that by having the community organizing, you actually increase the morale of the community because the community realize that the people that are policing that community are people that was elected by the community, people who live in that community instead of people that commute about an hour away from their wealthy white suburban neighborhoods. It will increase morale. And obviously this is theory, but we've seen just the failure of the current police systems. Now, like I said, there's different degrees of abolish ICE. I'm sorry, I agree in that too, but there are also different degrees of abolish the police. Like I said, there's some people that say we should just abolish law enforcement. They are the very small minority. I'm more of a reformist, extreme reformist, where you got to completely dismantle it as we know it. It got to be completely unrecognizable. But once again, as you see, there's a scale to that. My only thing is the reason why I advocate for abolish police is that we must make demands. Just saying we would have police reform, I don't think that's good enough. I think having the language of abolish police, police abolition, as we know, is powerful because we gotta let them know that the way they do business right now, it will not do, and it's unacceptable.